welcome to this final video in my series analysing the slide oil and gas case study. This is video 10 of all the videos, so if you've made it this far and you're right at the last video, then well done for making it through all the videos. I'm hoping by now that you've got a really excellent view on the company, its strategy, and actually probably could already have a good guess at some of the key issues that I'm about to raise in this video, given all your previous analysis. So this particular one then, this is going to be looking at my top 10 most likely issues, and what I'm going to be doing is predicting in order from 10 down to 1, a kind of countdown, what I think is most likely to come out. And actually what's been interesting, I started doing this about 2 years ago and was quite surprised. I quite surprised myself at just how accurate my predictions were. And the reality is that it isn't actually all that hard. The reality is that what is hinted at in the pre-scene very often is what tends to come up in the exam. Of course, I've got almost 10 years now of experience of case studies to be able to bring to the party, to be able to look at the pre-scene and then say, well, based on that pre-scene, these are the kind of things that come up and this is the way it's examined. So what I'm able to do hopefully in this video is not just help you to see what is most likely to come up, but also to focus you on the way you would go about approaching those kind of issues. And that's what we're going to do on this particular video. Right, so let's get on now. So let me just tell you the basis of my choice, how I've made up my top 10. The first thing I've looked at is the focus on the pre-scene. The reality is that there's some issues that are commented upon and focused upon in the pre-scene. There's hints in the pre-scene, and that's my main basis for decision. My second element of thinking is the strategic importance. So particularly things that are mentioned in the SWOT analysis, those are big hints as what will come up in the exam, but also linking through to what's relevant for the mission and strategy. So at slide we've got a mission based, very focused on exploration and getting very good in terms of skills and technology. So you'll see as we go through my issues then that skills, technology, focusing on exploration becomes an element of my choice. What I've also done is brought in my past experience. Now in terms of the first point you can see on the screen there under past exams, what we do have is about a year ago a very similar case study under the old T4 case. So I've been able to bring my knowledge of what was in that exam to the fore here as well. So I will use that. With things that were examined before a year ago, I think are highly likely to be examined now. The reason, without doubt in my mind, that CIMA have chosen to have the same case study is that we know they've been under a lot of pressure recently with a lot going on in terms of marking and so on. And so they thought, right, well, I'll tell you what we'll do, we'll whip out a case study that's very similar to one before. That's going to save everyone a lot of time and effort. And so for me, that's going to suggest that, well, what's in previous exams is going to be quite high on their agenda as well. They're going to want to save themselves time. So I think that comes in as well. Just other typical issues that generally come up in case studies. I've brought that in to the party too. An interesting one, the next one, how easy is it to write issues on that subject? You probably wouldn't think that would be relevant, but do you know what it is? I've spent years writing mock exams for case studies, and there are certain types of issues that are very easy to write issues on and other ones that are really quite tough. And of course the examiner should be writing completely different issues that are completely random, but you know, there's just some that's just, oh, yeah, that makes a nice topic, let's do it about that. And so that comes into this as well. Okay. Now the ability to set calculations, of course you won't be doing calculations, but we do know that what they would like to do is have a calculation in the scenario that maybe you evaluate. So there'll be something such as MPVs where we'd expect them to kind of give you something for you then to then write about. So that comes into it as well. So how should you prepare for these issues then? Key thing is you should practice lots of mock exams that cover the key issues. The mock exams that we've got are set up to practice most of these key issues. So if you go through all of those, you should have covered most of these key issues. So that's a good starting point, but you should go away as well and just think typically about the key points, what the advantages, disadvantages are, what you would need to do in relation to that in the exam. Be prepared for the types of models that you might use to support that those issues as well. And I will tell you which models I think are most relevant to different issues, but make sure you're ready to answer those questions, because you're ready to know which model you're going to use, which can bring up. One thing I just remind you of, which I think people often forget, is that the exams themselves can be quite practical. You might not be told to use a model specifically, and therefore to be aware of which model you might volunteer to bring up for a particular type of issue would be a great help in order for you to get the technical marks. Remember, 25% technical marks. Okay then, so let's go on to my number 10 issue. There was a whole page in the Preseen on reserves, and also we know that there was kind of commentary in the Preseen on how, as the oil price has fallen, this makes projects less viable than they used to be. Now, in my mind then, this means that some of those reserves that we've got, that we are reporting at the moment, we know that just over half of them are not fully proven, meaning that there's only a 50% likelihood of them coming out. Now, low oil prices means that some of that's going to be less viable. It's also going to mean new projects that we might have been doing that might have brought new reserves might not bring those reserves. So therefore, I think that the reserves is a very important topic. It's very important for the oil industry. The level of reserves actually reflects very closely the valuation of the company. And if reserves goes down, then the value of the company will go down. That could link through to investors showing concern if reserves fall, as you'll see on my blue point there under the issue. That could link through to funding. So a definite key issue is that on reserves. So key points to raise then about this issue is that reserves are key to the business valuation. Investors' expectations do need to be managed. One thing to bear in mind, and again it does say this in the Preseen, is that when you investigate new sites, you will expect that one or two of those, a certain proportion, will fail. And if investors turn around and say, oh, well, you've just invested so many million in this drilling operation and then found nothing, well, that is the way of this. There is a gamble, there is a risk, and that kind of investor expectation does need to be managed and controlled, particularly if we want to ensure that we've got good opportunity for new funding for new projects in the future. So we could use the models of strengths and weaknesses in the SWOT. Certainly I'm a little bit concerned when I looked at the information that's in the Preseen that the total level of reserves had fallen last year, and it seems that perhaps there hasn't been enough investment in finding new reserves. And so you could potentially sort of bring that in. Certainly investors in Mendelow's matrix who, depending on which one it is, if it's a FUS, it's probably a key player. If it's other investors and shareholders, probably in the keep satisfied box. But remember, Mendelow's matrix is a really superb model to use on virtually any issue. We could probably go through all top 10 and put Mendelow's matrix in. I haven't actually done that, but certainly Mendelow's matrix could be used on virtually any issue. So that's always one to remember to use as best you can. Okay, issue 9 is political uncertainty in the countries of production. We know they've got 7 subsidiaries and they are all around the world. Without doubt, some of them will be in areas of political unrest. We also know that in the oil and gas T4 exam last year, what was called the YJ exam, that was the name of that company, that political issue did come up and was brought up by the examiner there, linked through to security and staff safety. And so therefore, I think that therefore this will be a continuing issue. We know that politics is a key issue in the oil and gas industry, and I wouldn't be at all surprised to see the examiner bring that up. In relation to models then the P in PESTEL, and of course the L, the legal and the political, link very closely with that. Of course the political and legal also link through to the economy as well, because that would be affected by the politics of the country. So that's a very good model. Of course, again, Mendelow and the government could go into Mendelow. Mostly likely to be in the keep satisfied box with high power, low interest most of the time. Okay, that's issue 9. Issue 8 is an industry analysis using either a PESTEL or a 5 forces. I think that PESTEL and 5 forces are 2 key E3 models. They're very easy to examine, and there's lots of information in the case study on both of those models, particularly PESTEL actually, but I do think there's a really good opportunity for the 5 forces. And you would have seen in my in the previous video I went through my PESTEL and my 5 forces analysis. You really do need to learn those particular models and make sure you're aware of those. What I will say is that in the exam, do look for new information in the reference material for you to update the standard one that you've pre-learned. So do try and update it. The examiner likes updated models and not just ones that have been pre-prepared. What I've also got there, you notice my basis of choice, and up on the issue at the top, is I've linked it through to risks. Certainly Pestel in particular is very easy to link through to risk management, because you can have each of those 6 factors, each becoming risks which need to be managed. And to be fair, actually, under the 5 forces, things like suppliers, well, there's risks of things going wrong there. Linking through to competitors, risks of a very competitive environment, or new entrants enter into the market. So actually, all of those factors, very easy to link through to a risk question. And why is that nice? Well, from an examiner's point of view, you're linking E3 and P3. And of course, what they're trying to do, remember there's around about 8 marks for integration in this exam. And those integration marks are for combining different theories of different models across questions. So they like to be able to give you the opportunity to do that. Of course, you should also be looking for the opportunity to bring all 3 subjects in to any specific question. Okay, so that's issue 8. And if you're watching this video on YouTube and you're just watching the sample video, so hopefully you found that useful for me to take you through my top 3. Of course, you can get my remaining 7 issues on the video series, which you can buy at www.astranti.com, and I will go through each of my top issues then and take you through those in the same way as I've gone through these 3. Of course, as well as getting this extra video, you also get 9 other videos. You get my video of the strategic analysis, my F3 analysis, P3 analysis, and then 6 other videos where I go through the Preseen section by section by section, pulling out all of the key points and particularly applying that to some of the E3 models as I go. So pulling out all the key points, using my experience of this exam and the T4 before that to really help and guide you as to what you need to know and how you should approach the Preseen. So hopefully you'll think that's useful enough for you to go ahead and purchase that. That's www.astranti.com. Go on there and find that way you can sign up for the videos.